Well, hello y'all. Welcome to Outside the Room. I'm CG Funk, your host. We have a really fun program for you today, is that we are going to start our cranial sacral technique and tip episodes, and this is number 1. So I'm going to give you a little history about cranial sacral therapy, and then I'm going to show you a technique that you can easily put into any of your massage or skincare services. I want to give a shout out to Massage Heights and Associated Bodywork and Massage Professionals for being the exclusive sponsors of Outside the Room. We really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's get going. So I am a massage therapist, as many of you listeners and viewers know that I've shared that story with you through the Outside the Room episodes. But I'm also a cranial sacral therapist, and I have hundreds of hours of training from Upledger Institute, from the Milne Institute, and from the Hartwood Institutes. So I know a bit about cranial sacral therapy. And what I have seen in bodywork and massage sessions that I've enjoyed through your wonderful hands, and oftentimes the massage therapist or esthetician will throw in a cranial sacral therapy technique at the end of the service. So what I'd like to do today and through several more episodes is to really teach you more about those techniques that you're using and teach you more effective ways to apply them. All right, so today, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the history of cranial sacral therapy so that you understand where this modality came from. And with me today is my trusty skull, colored skull. This is Dana. And as you can see, all the bones are colored differently so that when we talk about those separate bones, you'll be able to see them really well. All right, so cranial sacral therapy actually has its roots in cranial osteopathy. And it was created or discovered, we should say, by an osteopath named William Sutherland back in the 1890s. And Sutherland was a student in osteopathic school, and he was walking by down the hall of his school one day, and he noticed a case that held a human skull. And it struck him, and he looked at this case, and he looked at the skull, and he studied it, and he realized something. And this is his exact thought, word for word. That skull is beveled like the gills of a fish, indicating articular mobility for respiratory motion. So let me break that down for you a bit. The skull itself is beveled like the gills of a fish. So if you can just picture a fish and the gills on the side and how they curve in this beveling formation. Beveled like the gills of a fish, indicating articular mobility, indicating that there's some type of movement at the articulation of the different bones here, indicating articular mobility for respiratory motion. So that articular mobility is designed to allow for a respiratory motion, which is a inhale, exhale, this in and out motion. So that's what William Sutherland thought when he looked at the skull, which is a pretty profound thought. Let me say it one more time. Beveled like the gills of a fish, indicating articular mobility for respiratory motion. So then Sutherland went on to study the cranial bones, to study the how they connect the spine to the sacrum. And he also studied the cerebral spinal fluid that rolls through the head and the brain and through the spinal column. And he came up with these techniques that he felt would appropriately address folks that had different issues in those areas. Specifically, and I'll just say some off the top of my head, headaches, migraine and tension and otherwise, inter-ear problems, imbalances in our pituitary gland and thyroid glands. And what he also found was is if you take the head and then the spinal column and then the sacrum and you're holding it like this, this is a beautifully connected, naturally connected structure in the body that one end can affect the other end and vice versa. So when you start to learn cranial sacral therapy, many of the classes that you can take, the CEU classes, will teach you like the top 10 techniques, or the easiest 10 techniques. And then a lot of these classes in CEU programs go into advanced training, and they go off in different tangents, which is great. There's so many different schools of thought about how this respiratory motion works, about the cerebral spinal fluid, about the benefits of the work in itself. But here's a simple way to look at this. When you look at the head, the spinal cord and sacrum, or the spinal column, sorry, and sacrum, what you're doing with the cranial sacral techniques is you're applying a holds that gently decompress these areas. And you're holding those for a very long time to allow the structures to release. Everything in our life is about compression. Whether we get in an accident, whether we have stress, whether we fall down, whether we hug a person, everything is compressive. And life comes at us compressing our structure. And what cranial does is decompress. So there are very simple techniques for decompression to allow for that respiratory motion. And really all respiratory motion is movement. Movement, everything moves in the body, everything. And we need to move also. Movement, I believe, is the key to a very healthy life. So we're going to do some techniques. I'm going to show you one technique today on a model. We have a model coming in, and the technique we're going to show you is the occipital base release. And this is a technique that I see many estheticians and many massage therapists integrating into their sessions, typically at the end. But I want to teach you a couple of nuances about this that will help you better do this. First of all, cranial holds are meant to be held for a longer period of time than 10 or 15 seconds. So if you're going to apply a cranial hold and to the bones, to the spinal column, to the sacrum, you need to plan on holding that at least 3 minutes, and sometimes up to 10 minutes if you're working with someone with a more severe injury. So first of all, anytime you do the techniques, please just don't hold them for 10 seconds, because that's not doing anything. It's kind of like if you look at wanting to move a boat in the water and you push it and it's not going anywhere, and you push it again and it's not going anywhere. So you're just trying to do these quick push, where if you take your hand and lean on the boat, over time it moves in the water. So I hope that makes sense for you. So the occipital base release, this is where you have fingers that are applied to the bottom part here of the occipital bone. And what you're doing is you're sinking your fingers into the soft tissue, the tendons and the muscles that attach to that bone, and you're pushing up a little and pulling back a little, and you're holding. What this serves to do is it serves to help decompress where the spinal column comes in to this area, and this is where a lot of tension is held. So if you imagine all of the muscles coming off of here into the shoulders and into the neck, relaxing this area of the body right at the occipital base release at the edge of it here is going to help relax those muscles and relax the tension. So before we do any more lecturing, let's show you a demo of that. Hi everyone, it's CG Funk back with Outside the Room and showing our cranial sacral therapy technique. We are going to learn the occipital base release today. And that was the one that, remember I told you that we are at the bottom of the occiput here, and we're pushing into the soft tissue, the tendons and the muscles, and all of that affects the neck and the shoulders. This technique is really good for headaches, relaxation, temporal mandibular joint disorder, and also for relaxing any type of stress and compromise in the neck area, both anterior and posterior, and in the shoulders. So let's get started. Now remember, I told you about we're going to have our fingers tucked into that soft tissue, and I'm going to show you how that goes here with our model Drew. Now keep in mind that a lot of cranial sacral therapy classes teach you to approach the body and these techniques with only 5 grams of pressure. But oftentimes the pressure will increase as the muscles and the body relax. So don't be afraid to do a little extra push, and don't be afraid to go over 5 grams of pressure. You just don't want to go in with a lot of pressure when you first start. So I'm going to roll Drew's neck to the side here so you can see this is going to be the area that we're targeting today. And you can see I'm pushing on the bone right here. So that's the bottom of the occiput. That's where it stops here as it curves in and connects to the spine, the C1, C2 area. And we're going to be pushing up into that. And as we push up into that soft tissue, we're going to traction the bone towards us. So traction it superiorly. And then we're also going to push enough so the head tilts back like this. And I'll show you. So get in position. I like to use the bottom part of the palm of my hand here to secure it. And then I form this little V, and I have the fingers right next to that bone in the soft tissue. And I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. So let me just roll and show you what that looks like. All right, let's roll him back. So I've got his head is only resting on the pad of my thumb and my fingers. So this isn't where you're cupping the head. You don't want to cup the head. You want to give it a little pedestal. And as I hold this, I'm going to push up and have his chin come up. So now I'm just holding, and then I'm going to pull my fingers back and just traction a little bit. Drew, how are you feeling? Does that feel okay?
Feels amazing.
Okay. Not too much pressure?
Not at all.
I can tell you guys this is a lot more than 5 grams of pressure, but you've got that added weight of the head that gives this technique a really, really nice, deep feel for your client. And it also allows you to not do so much work because you're just holding. So I'm tractioning, I'm pulling that occiput away from the spine, and I'm also pushing up to tilt his head back to get into those muscles. And then we hold. This is a hold, you guys. It's not a quick 10-second in and 10-second out. And of course, I probably won't hold it the full 3 minutes on here because watching that would be like watching paint dry or grass grow. But I do want to encourage you to hold these holds at least a minute, if not up to 5, depending on the severity of the injury. Now, Drew has he's pretty flexible in this area. So he's not really resisting. But there could be a lot of folks that you work on that have a lot more restrictions and less mobility in their neck, and you would be much softer, a much softer and gentler approach, and let those muscles relax on their own. That's the whole thing with cranial sacral therapy, is that you're holding these and you're applying your decompressive techniques, and you're letting the body unwind itself. And that's just, you're giving it the time and space to do that and to respond to that. So it's a beautiful way to approach body work, and I love this work, and I hope that you try this technique with your clients, and I'll look forward to seeing you the next episode when I'll show you some more techniques of cranial sacral therapy. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.